How's it going? It's been a while. I am really excited about this video today. I have so much to show you. I apologize if it gets long-winded, but believe me, I just have a lot of stuff that I want to show you. We're going to talk about how to make a template for creating NES noises, and we're going to do it in two parts. This first part, we're going to cover half, or the first timbre of noise that the NES can make, and it can make two. So this one will have all 16 pitches of the first timbre. Then we're going to take the noises that we made, put them into a sampler, and that will be our template, our preset, really. And then we're going to take that preset and make some Castlevania sound effects that use that noise generator. Before we start, I wanted to thank the people that were instrumental in me figuring some of this stuff out. It was two people especially. It was Tim Trebax, sorry if I didn't pronounce that right, and Mark Penrice. Both those people are part of the Chiptunes WIN Facebook group, and also all the other people who are helping me figure that stuff out. So thank you so much. And please let me know if I'm getting anywhere close to what you guys suggested. But I took a lot of your advice to heart, and I think it really helped. I have some other news. I actually got to do a bunch of sound effects live, mostly Foley, and then some pre-recorded sound effects for a live radio show for the Count DRAHOON's Feature of Fright podcast. And we actually did a live radio show of that here in Tennessee, in Smyrna. It was really fun. If you want to check that out and listen to all the sound effects that we put together for that drama, go check out the link below to the Count DRAHOON podcast. I think you'll get a kick out of it. It's a cool show. It's kind of like Twilight Zone and done like an old radio show. So let me know what you think about the show. One more thing before we get started. It's a little sobering, but I heard that the Game Theorist channel hosted by Ronnie Edwards lost one of their staff members to suicide. I am about 99% sure that information is true, that it's not some kind of weird prank. And so assuming that that's true, I'm so sorry for your loss. All right, let's get started with some sound design. We're going to start with how to start creating these samples. So there's a couple of different ways to do this. Let's say there's about, I can't remember how many ways, but the first way, without creating your own samples, just go get some kind of emulation like FamiTracker, that's for PC. It has a noise generator, and the noise sounds like the chip that's in the original NES. Here is what you would get. Okay, that's the first sample. And then here, or the first pitch, second pitch, third pitch, and you can use the software to get that. You could do what I did and take that noise and sample it. So, and that's what you were just listening to. All these different pitches I listened to. Now, I'm not using those, neither am I going to post this because I think that would be breaking in user license agreements, selling their samples. So I can't post that, but I could post my own. I might do that. So what I did was as I normally do, I sampled that in order to listen back to it easier and use it as a reference. So I was listening to this, and my goal was to emulate it. So now, in order to do that, I take a noise generator, and this is interesting. This is one way to go about it. I've taken 24-bit noise, and we're basically going to bit crush it, but there's a little more to it than that. So let's take a look at what this noise sounds like, and then what the noise sounds like without any processing. Okay, what normal white noise looks like. So let me pull up an RTA, a real-time analyzer. There's the first pitch, and you can see it's got a slope. Let's see if can I freeze it? So there is the noise profile of the NES noise. And now here is just normal white noise. So you can see that there's a very different shape here. This is more flat. I think I might have an EQ that's rolling that off a little bit. I have so many EQs, it's kind of hard to keep track at this point. But it's basically going to be flat across the frequency spectrum. So you'd think, oh, okay, all I have to do is use an EQ. Well, that doesn't quite work. And skipping ahead, the main thing we need to do is crush the bit depth and the sample rate. So here is a plugin to do that in Pro Tools that comes stock with Pro Tools. Get any kind of bit crushing stuff. Logic has a bit crusher. There's lots of different synthesizers that have their own bit crushing. So grab that, and here's what we're going to do. If there's anti-aliasing, we're going to turn it all the way down. Let me just reset this, okay? And we're going to get this, and we're going to loop it. Okay. Anti-aliasing is coming all the way down. Not really going to hear a difference. Now we're going to lower the sample rate. Starting to get a little crunchy. Now if I lower it to 2 bits, I don't hear anything. So actually I need to normalize the sound before it comes in. That means I need to give it about as heavy a volume as I can before it starts clipping. This is really important. And I'll go over that again in a second. So there we go. I have a limiter now that's pushing really hard into my bit crusher. Now we're going to get the dramatic difference when I lower the sample rate. And there we go. So here I have the original sound. And here's what we have right now. It's a lot closer. I added a little EQ to get it just that much closer to what I thought it sounded like the original. And let me make sure that I've documented where I put this thing there. I think that's a little closer. And again, I'm not going to get it exact, but I'm going to get pretty darn close. Okay. It's close. If I could get it just a little lower, I think that'd be better, but this sample rate doesn't get any lower. I had to push this to the very bottom. So you might have the ability to get even closer with your bit crusher, but that's what's going on. I have to have my noise generator. After that, I normalize the sound. I did that with a limiter. So I've pushed the sound up so that it is maxed before it starts clipping. Then we pushed it into a bit crusher. Okay. And by the way, let me show you something. If you're wondering why I'm not pushing it even harder with a limiter, you'll see why. This is the output of the bit crusher. If I raise the ceiling anymore, it starts peaking. Right there. So you see now it's clipping. I don't really want that. So I'm going to keep it right there where it wasn't clipping, and really it doesn't seem to give much of a level difference at all. I mentioned that there was EQ that I used in all of the others, and I thought that I had said what it was, but in case I didn't, when we looked at those RTA noise profiles and we saw that there was a slope off at 10K, I put two low-pass filters on it to try to get that slope that matched, again, the NES noise profile. Let me know if you have any questions. Again, like I said, I've got a lot of information to share. So I've repeated that process from one noise to the next 16 times. That worked all the way for the first 11 samples, all the way till we got to this one. Okay. And by the way, instead of going over every single hertz setting for each one, I'm just going to list it below. So go to the comments and see what each one is. For example, this first one was at 3 bits and 761 hertz. Now, when we get to 13, 14, 15, and 16, these guys, you're going to start to hear a very cyclic sound, meaning you can hear a pattern that's getting repeated. And actually, I could hear that in the other ones, but it was so obvious in these 4 that I really wanted to make sure I captured that sound. So what we have here, let me go back to how I had to cut it. We matched the noise like we did the other noise pitches, but here I cut it at about 0.64 seconds or 0.7 seconds and then repeated it. And that's what's going to give it that cyclic sound. So it's that much sound, but now it's going to repeat. And then the next pitch, 14, is going to be half that. So it's going to be even faster. So listen to how it sounds here. And you can really hear that in the original sample. Dugga, 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 dugga. So guess what? We're going to half it again when we get to this one. This is the Fama Tracker noise here for 15. It's going twice as fast. So I took the same noise that was sampled up here to match just the sound quality, and then I cut it to length and repeated it several times. So this one, if I can pull it up, is going to be, should be half that. Yeah, 0.17 seconds, 0.18 seconds. Okay, so we kind of started about 7, and then we went to 3.5, and now we're like 0.18 seconds. And here's what this one sounds like. Okay, also very cyclic. And finally, the very last one, we have a very fast repeat. So it's very high pitched, and we're also repeating that sound pretty fast. And let me get that exact number of seconds that those last for you. That is 0.09 seconds. So almost a tenth of a second, a little less than tenth of a second. I forgot to mention one other thing. Those last 4 pitches that are cyclic and repeat, I added even more EQ to boost the high end, kind of push down the lows, and make subtle adjustments to how my ears were matching it to the Fama Tracker noise. So I'm going to suggest that you use your ears because you might just get closer. But it's that simple. You put an EQ in, experiment with a high shelf and a low shelf, and push and pull to get a little bit more closer to the Fama Tracker sound, or what you think is going to be closer to that sound. And here's how mine sounds. Okay. Pretty close. It's close enough for me. And again, the easiest thing might be to buy a plugin, which I didn't mention before. You could just buy a plugin that has these kind of noises. However, you're going to see when we put our samples into our own sampler, we have a lot more flexibility with what we can do than if you were to buy a plugin or just copy the samples from Fama Tracker and use those. So lots of different ways to get to the same goal. I am always trying to make it so you don't have to spend more money. You can use any noise generator. You use the plugins at your disposal and get your kind of your own sound as well. It's not exact. It's trying to get close, but also a little bit of what can you create. Now that you have those concepts, we're going to load it in a sampler, and I have Contact. Let's do this. Let me show you from scratch how to load it up into Contact. In Pro Tools, we create an instrument track, and then I'm going to create a Contact instance. I have Contact 5. Okay, double click, and now we have our sampler. If I press the little wrench right here, that opens up my sampler, and I go to the mapping editor. I can see it's empty. So now we're going to go to the noises that I bounced out. I've bounced out all 16 of those noises. Have to be very organized. Everything's labeled noise timbre 1. Here we go. I'm going to load up a sample, and in here C3 is middle C for me. Now if you haven't used Contact, then you might not realize that the very first note that it covers, let me zoom in a little bit. The very first note that it covers is the root pitch. So here's the original sample when I play that note. You can see down here on my keyboard what note I'm playing. But without putting the other samples in, I can actually take just that noise and it's already been transposed up by semitones up the keyboard. I believe other samplers will work similarly to this, so if you want to use just that, you might get some very interesting sounds. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have it so that that very first note that's covered is the only one that we're going to hear, because we're going to use the other notes for our other samples. So then I would take another one, drag it over here, and pull it over so that it's only over that note. So now we have our second sample that we made. So I've already done this, so to save time, let me switch over there. Okay, I have all 16. You might notice that they get a little quieter as they get higher. Another characteristic that I saw in the FamiTracker thing. Honestly, I don't think it's absolutely necessary. Let me show you a couple of other settings that might be important to you. If you go under Mod, then you will find Velocity, and it's usually set to this, so that when I hit a note slowly, it's quiet. That's cool, but the NES could not volume control the noise, to my knowledge. So you could just go ahead and boost this up, so no matter what the velocity you hit the note is, it will be the same volume. Unless you want quieter notes. That's fine too. It's whatever you need. But just so you know, that's how mine's working. Another thing is the envelope. That's right here. So you're going to find that contact defaults with a little release. You'll need to adjust this for different sound effects, okay? And you'll find that we're going to do that later. There is one other setting that I looked up the other day to do with monophony, and that should be under Presets, Factory, Performance, Unisano Portamento. So if you want your sound to be monophonic, pull this up. We're going to make the voice 1. We're not going to detune it. Mode on. There. Aha. Okay, so you turn mono mode on. And there you go. You have one voice. You can, again, change this to your needs, but since we're dealing with NES emulation, we're going to leave it on mono. Okay, so now our sampler is all set up. Let's go over to some of the noise sound effects for Castlevania. All right, let's start with something simple. This is the whip sound, I believe, in Castlevania. So it's high pitched, it has a short envelope, short attack, short release, kind of a slow to moderate decay. Let's make those adjustments in our instrument. Looks like we're just about there. Lower the decay a little. There we go. Maybe a little more. I'm hitting the 12th pitch. Actually, I think the 13th sounds a little closer. Okay, so there's the whip sound. Let's try another one. We'll zoom in on this one and see what we've got. We've got a kind of 3 different pitches all happening in quick succession. We can try to sort of play it. I think I'm going to play just one. Well, I think it no longer decay is what we need. One, two, three, four, five. I think about the 7th pitch is around what I'm at. And it's got sort of a metallic-y kind of sound to it, so something tells me this might actually be the other timbres that we can make with the NES that we haven't gone over yet. So If it starts to get that metally sort of ringing sound, chances are it is the second timbre, the second group of 16 pitches. Let's look at another one. That one's kind of interesting. Sort of starts low, goes high, and then ends low again. We've got a low pitch, middle pitch, high, and then low again. So with MIDI, we could probably get that fairly accurately. Let's go to notes. It's about that long. And then we'll go to maybe that one. Let's go to the next one. Maybe there, and then back to the first one. Let's see if that gets close. And we'll make sure that they overlap. There we go. It's actually pretty close. Yeah, there you go. So you can see how we can use these noise samples to start making these NES sounds, and they get pretty convincing. So we were able to look at how to make NES samples of our own, then how to load them up into a sampler, then an application of them for game sound design, and we used Castlevania. That is what I have for now for creating a noise template for the NES, or I keep saying template. I think preset's a better word. And how to recreate those 16 different noise pitches in the first timbre. We're going to keep exploring probably Castlevania and maybe another game that works better with the second noise timbre when I get that. And then we'll also look at some of the pitched sound effects for Castlevania, and we're going to look at the first track for Castlevania as well, how to recreate that. So I'm excited to show you that in a future video. If you want to support the channel, just like and subscribe, share, mash the like button. If you want to support the channel, then mash that subscribe button. I'm going to have more videos. Like, share, comment. If you have any questions, I am happy to answer those, or suggestions for sound effects that you'd like to hear in the future. I hope to get to those. If you would like to find another way to support the channel, I have a Patreon page. You can just click the link below, and I have some cool patron rewards, like seeing videos early, joining our Facebook page, even mentioning you in the show. So on that note, thank you to all my current patrons. You make this video possible, and I think that that's about it. I will see you guys in the next video. Later.